We the lazy declare that we will recline when we feel inclined. And yes, we feel inclined.
We answered our kids' questions all day. It's our time to prioritize, no priorities.
Why?
Because
We put in back-to-back doubles. So now we'll be putting in extra OT right here.
We've checked off our to-do list.
Now we're checking off our to-don't list.
we the lazy are taking back lazy.
By getting comfy on our Lazy Boy furniture.
Lazy Boy, long live the lazy.
When storms start to blow and danger strikes, we come together to face any challenge as a community. And when trouble hits our county, HCFL Alert is your #1 source for information. HCFL Alert is with you before, during, and after the storm. To sign up, visit hcfl.gov/HCFL Alert so we know how and when to notify you about local emergencies. The safest way through bad weather is together.
How you doing, everybody? I'm Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips. Heat, still the hot topic of weather conversation, right?
Streaming from the ABC Action Weather Center in Studio A, this is Dennis Phillips Live, brought to you by Lazy Boy Furniture Galleries. Long live the lazy, and by HCFL Alert.
Happy holiday weekend, everybody. I'm ABC Action News Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips on this Friday evening. You know, I don't normally, well, you guys know, if there's anything going on in the weather, we're going to talk about it. Now, this is something that I guess down the road will be going on in the weather. There's not a lot going on right now. Still kind of got this cough, excuse me. But it's worth talking about because, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's just beginning to pop, and there's a lot of questions, and a lot of people are kind of trying to get an idea of timeline. And so I figured I would just kind of go through the process of what we're looking at, and especially the time frame over the next 12 to 14 days, and what those possibilities are. Now, we all know this early on, there's no way anybody's going to know exactly what's going to happen with any kind of a tropical system, especially one that doesn't exist yet, which this one really doesn't. But again, I think we at least kind of have an idea of that time frame. Where? We don't know. And we'll get into that in just a second. But, you know, we often do hellos. We haven't had a chance to do as many hellos lately because we've been so busy with guests. With Shay Ryan was on one time. We had the editor of Ye Old Farmer's Almanac, as I called it yesterday, was here. So, Stephen in Clearwater, how you doing? Dave, good to see you. Bridget, you're in Hollywood. This woman, she travels. Say hi to my old stomping grounds. Before I worked here, I worked in Hollywood. I actually worked on Sunset and Gower, right in that area where the Capitol Record Building is. You know, the little circular building that in the Day After Tomorrow movie got annihilated by a tornado. That was literally right next to where I used to work at KCBS. It was a lifetime ago. Why are you in Hollywood? Is Toto there? Bridget's a huge Toto fan. Not the dog, the band. So Anna Maria, good to see you. Barbara in Largo, Sue in Plant City, Seminoles in the house. Kathy, how are you? We've got Longwood watching. Kurt, how are you? Doesn't want any more blobs. Gary in Winter Haven. We've got Homosassa with Karen. We've got Polk County, Deborah. Brooksville's in the house with Elaine. Newport Richie, Roxanne. And, well, Barbara, that is a possibility. He's asking about, like, in 10 days out, why, you know, why is there a possibility of a big storm in the Gulf? There is. There absolutely is. I would be more inclined to say, yeah, chances are probably 60-40 in favor of a storm in the Gulf of Mexico by day 10 or 11. I think the reason the Hurricane Center has such a low number, because that's a week out. And it's more of a day 8, 9, 10 that might have a bigger impact. So that's kind of something that we're watching. I think it's more in terms of the time frame. The new number, the new prediction is actually going to come out very soon. Let's see if they've updated it yet. Still haven't, still the 2 o'clock advisory. So lots of hellos. the names scroll by so quick and I can't get to them, so I apologize. They go by. Hector in Puerto Rico. You should be okay. I really don't think this gets going, if it does, until it goes far into the Western Caribbean. And I'll show you that in a second, because GFS is, practically a non-trackable system until it gets into the Western Caribbean, and then it hits all that warm water, which is a very possible scenario. I mean, it is. So anyway, let's go ahead and look and see what else we have. So Judy in Sarasota. So anyway, let's just keep on going. All right, we're gonna jump. We got a lot of folks here, actually, more than I expected, because I didn't announce we were gonna do DPL. All right, let's go ahead and start with the Hurricane Center and what they have. Yeah, a lot of the folks in the Caribbean are here. At this point, I think the threat to the Caribbean is rather low. I'll show you why in a second. But again, this is the 2 o'clock advisory. So we talked about this a week ago in the Northern Gulf, because all you had to do was look at the rainfall predictions, and you could see that there was an excessive amount of rainfall predicted in the Northern Gulf. So this was before a yellow area was hatched. Didn't really matter, because we knew there was going to be a blob of rain there. So whether or not it actually developed or not was kind of inconsequential. Looking at all my tabs, people are like, oh, what are all those tabs? It's all rule number 7 stuff. So most of the folks know that. So where the heck was that other map that I had? All right, here we go. And then you got this area in yellow where, there could be some development, but most of the models are hinting that that's going to go on more of a track north of the islands. We'll see. But this is obviously the one that there's a lot of buzz with, and for good reason. Look, how many times have you heard us say that any time a system gets into the Caribbean this time of the year, that is obviously a huge, huge threat. And as warm as the water is, and once you get into September, then you start worrying about, will there be fronts dropping down, which could help to guide a storm coming in? I mean, what have we often said? I mean, you guys have heard me say this 11 billion times, that our worst case scenario is a storm that develops and traverses in the Yucatan Channel, west of Cuba, east of the Yucatan, and goes north. And then a front comes in and kicks it right. I mean, you guys have heard me say that over and over again, because that is probably our worst case scenario. Not saying that's going to happen with this, but that solution is one of 50 that are on the table. And when we go ahead and look at, I'll go ahead and show you this here. Look at the ensembles. All right, I'll take this full so you can see a little bit better. So here are the ensembles. Yes, that is a lot of times, Kenny. It's a lot of times. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this through the time frame. All right, this is tomorrow. You still got nothing. I want you to look kind of at the area down here in the tropical Atlantic. This is Sunday. Start to see the spaghetti models a little bit. Right? This is Monday. Approaching the Leeward Islands, still a disorganized system. This is Tuesday. This is Wednesday. And I'll show you a better, this is just the ensembles. I'll show you the actual operational runs in a minute. See where it is, south of the islands, still a very disorganized system if the forecast holds true. And then we get farther down into the end of the week. And then once you get right here, okay? This is in 80 hours from now. No, that's in 8 days rather. I was gonna say 8 hours, that can't be. 8 days from now, you have the potential right here. And look at the spread in the spaghetti models. You've got a spread that goes south, you've got a spread that goes north, but you have it in that area that certainly leads to a pretty legitimate chance of something going into the Gulf of Mexico. And the bottom line is, if something goes into the Gulf, if it goes into the Gulf, it's going to make landfall somewhere. Doesn't mean Florida, but it's going to make landfall, because once it goes into the Gulf, it's landlocked. There's no way around it. It's going to hit somebody. So once we get to day 8, this is when it becomes more of an issue, especially if you get something that is developing by then. All right? So we go to day 9. Right here. All right, and then day 10. Now, look at the spread with day 10. You have storms going across Cuba into South Florida. You have storms going through the Yucatan and coming into our area. You have storms slowing down, maybe aiming more toward the Big Bend. You have a more westerly track going into the Yucatan and probably eventually into, the Western Gulf. So the entire Gulf of Mexico is a possibility by day 10. It's that simple. And we're not going to get any kind of resolution until later on. I mean, I'm talking until a week from now. This is the classic stalking turtle thing again. It's going to be a slow process. But I will repeat, while it could be anywhere in the Gulf, we always worry about a system that's coming in from the south as a cold front approaches. And look what happens. You see that, where you start to see a curve, either whether the Big Bend, whether the Panhandle, whatever the case may be. Again, this is the Euro ensemble, and then this is the next 15 days. So at the end of the day, look how broad of an area is potentially impacted. The entire Gulf of Mexico and even a little bit east. So anybody who's going to come out there and sit here and say, well, I think it's going to hit Louisiana, or I think it's going to hit Florida, or whatever, give me a break. It's a bunch of nonsense. Nobody on earth has any idea if that's the way it's going to play out. Right? We don't have a system yet. How many times have we said this in these times? There's not even a trackable entity yet. But if you were to pin me down and say, Dennis, what do you think is going to happen? Well, I'm going to show you the GFS as well and the Euro operational runs. There will be a ton of waffling the next 5 or 6 days, a ton of the windshield wiper effect back and forth and back and forth. It's going to happen. All right? Over and over again. But I think there's a legitimate chance that we are going to have a tropical storm or hurricane going into the Gulf of Mexico. That's not going out on much of a limb. It's September, the peak of the hurricane season. We usually happen. And if you watched us a few weeks ago, we said we thought we were getting another one, if not 2, get pretty darn close to Florida because it was the way the upper level winds and everything was shaping up. So look, that's where we are right now, okay? That will change, but it's probably not going to change a lot for several days because you don't have much of a change in the system. It's just going to be hanging out, going west very slowly. So unfortunately, we're going to be talking about this for 2 weeks because I don't think it's going away. But the question is it going to develop further and get stronger? All right? That's where I want to talk about the GFS's prediction. Here is the GFS, okay? Now, this is exactly this is the latest operational run. And let me put in a disclaimer. The GFS in the last 24 hours has gone from a landfalling Florida hurricane to a landfalling Texas hurricane to completely gone and now back into a panhandle hurricane. So expect this to be completely back and forth for days on end. So putting ensembles out, like we just showed you, those are a responsible thing to show because it gives you a range. The operational run of anybody showing an operational run of a storm this far out is not looking to do you any good, is not trying to help you, not trying to prepare you, because that's just pure nonsense. I mean, all you got to do is look at the ensemble. And if Florida's in the ensemble and Louisiana's in the ensemble, well, you know that area in between is all part of the process and has to be, keep their eye on it. All right? That's it. All right, I'm going to go back and take this full screen. Let's go ahead and look at the GFS. All right, so here is tomorrow. Our area is down here. Let me show you so you can kind of see it. It's down here. All right, so watch right there. This is tomorrow. This is Sunday at 8 o'clock, Monday at 8 o'clock, You still, Tuesday at 8 o'clock. I mean, there's nothing to track. Wednesday at 8 o'clock. There you see it a little bit better right there in the middle. Thursday at 8 o'clock. Next Thursday, next Friday, a week out. A week out. And then we start to look in the Western Gulf, okay? That's a week out. Next Saturday, you finally, on the 7th, you finally see low pressure develop, okay? You finally see low pressure develop. Then, you go to Sunday at 8 o'clock. Again, if this GFS, this is the operational run that I'm talking about. This is the one that's going to change back and forth, the back and forth, the back and forth. But this particular operational run, and I'll say this again, in the last 24 hours, this operational run has gone from Florida to Texas to nothing to back to Florida. So expect massive changes one way or the other, okay? But I'm showing you this because what I do think is worth noting is you get a system that is not going to develop much until it gets into the Western Caribbean. There's a week out, and it's still really not even a trackable thing. And then you get next Saturday. Now, there's the problem because it brings it, Western Cuba, whatever, and it brings it into the Gulf. And once it goes into the Gulf, it is going to be a massive warm water in the Gulf, and there's the potential for it to develop. So whether it's going west or northwest or north or northeast, that's your window of opportunity next weekend for this thing to develop. And that's exactly what the GFS does. This particular run, it brings it up into the Panhandle. Another run, it could bring it into Louisiana. Another one, it could bring it into South Florida. It doesn't matter where it brings it at this point because it's fantasy land. But what it does do that I think is worth noting is it shows you that once it hits the Gulf, there's certainly potential for this thing to really pick up its strength. So there you go. That is the GFS. The Euro is more to the west. Here's the Euro. Same thing. Doesn't really do much. Goes into the islands. That's next Wednesday. A little closer, still not even any kind of an organized system, right? South of Cuba. And then, exactly like the GFS, next Friday, it starts to develop. I mean, this is why, I think there's legitimate chances of development here because both models are showing a similar ragged system. Now, where it develops is whatever. It's meaningless. All right? Where it goes from here is meaningless. The Euro brings it more west. And doesn't even really, at that point, that's as far out as it goes. That only goes out 10 days. There is a front coming, and that's a little concerning. Look at your front there. And typically, if you're going to get a front coming, you're going to have this coming up and trailing into that front. So this is 10 days out. So my point of this, and while we don't know where, my point of this is that both of these systems, both of these models keep it ragged until it gets into the Western Caribbean, and then it goes into the Gulf and hits all that warm water and really starts to develop. So, based on that, it seems pretty likely that we're not going to see a lot of development for the next 6 or 7 days, which means the islands should be okay. Folks who are watching in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, even Jamaica, if indeed this follows kind of the thinking that we're going with, then this is going to be a Western Caribbean situation and then going into the Gulf. And from there, we'll see how it plays out. All right, is this the new one? Yep, the new one is still at 40%. So this is the update from the National Hurricane Center. Gradual development of the system is possible during the next few days, and a depression could form sometime next week while it moves west. So again, and then continuing across the Caribbean Sea to the middle of next week. You notice this only has a 40% chance through 7 days. This isn't a 40% chance of development. It's a 40% chance over the next week. And if, as we were showing you, 7 days out, it's still right. This is 7 days out right here. So it's still not quite developed. My guess is tomorrow and Sunday, if these models continue to show as they do, then you're probably going to see that number rise when the NHC comes out with their predictions every 6 hours going on into the weekend and beyond. All right, so there you go. That is it. Again, Ensemble shows it can go anywhere in the Gulf of Mexico, which is certainly a possibility. But the one thing that is worth noting, and I'll say this again, you know, our concern obviously is anything coming in from the south. It always has been. We've known this forever. Any kind of developing tropical system going into that very warm water in the Gulf of Mexico, even with the potential of a front coming in at the same time, which is also, you know, not the greatest thing for Florida, is certainly something that we're going to have to watch. Time frame. The Euro has that 10 days out. So again, what we were looking at, this is next Monday, a week from Labor Day. A week from Labor Day, this has the storm more to the west, obviously. This would not be a Florida storm if that's the case. The GFS in 10 days has it much closer to Florida. That's the operational run, mind you, you know, again. But I show you this in terms of time frames. So let's say this were to become an issue for our area, for Florida in general. The time frame would probably be a week from Sunday or a week from this upcoming Monday. That's probably what we're looking at. And that's about it. That is about it. You know, that's all we got. But I think it's noteworthy to mention that it's a pretty delayed development. So the next 3, 4, 5 days, you're not going to get much different. I don't expect the models are going to show much of a difference. And I don't expect the system to be much of a difference either. So we'll go with that. All right, let's go ahead and give you a little bit of an update on what we can expect for the holiday weekend. And we had a lightning strike today at a home, unfortunately, in Oldsmar. There was some pretty significant damage in the Oldsmar area as that line came through. And again, for your weekend plans, your mornings are good, your early afternoons are good, but then after about 3 or 4 o'clock, those storms are going to come through. Now, remember, it is worth noting that I do think there'll be a little bit drier air tomorrow. So overall, the coverage, I think, will be a little bit lower tomorrow than it was today. Temperatures right now upper 70s to the middle 80s. We hit the low to mid 90s exactly like we should this time of the year. Well, we were actually 2 degrees above average. We hit 93. We're at 82 right now. The average high is 91. The average low is 77. So when the line came through, another round of very heavy rain moving from east to west. More thunderstorms. Tomorrow, some slightly drier air is going to come in. Doesn't mean we're not going to see any, well, the morning will be dry yet again. The morning will be completely dry. And then into early afternoon, nothing more than a maybe 30% coverage of some scattered storms. So Sunday, skies will be sunny again in the morning. Maybe a shower late morning, but I think primarily that moisture builds in on Sunday afternoon. So barbecues earlier in the afternoon is wise. Anything after 4 o'clock, you're going to be looking at some scattered thunderstorms. All right? Labor Day, exact same setup. Afternoon and evening storms. So if you look at the overall rain coverage, it's pretty clear. You know, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, you can kind of see the green color is darker, the rain chances are higher. So regardless if you have plans in the morning or early afternoon, you're fine through Labor Day. If you're going to the beach, you're going to the pool, you got nothing to worry about. But come 3 or 4 o'clock, you might want to check your app, check your radar, see what's going on, because you do not want to get stuck out on the beach, especially with a lot of people over Labor Day weekend going to be out there. It's going to be tough to get out. So watch out for those storms that can develop really quickly and come in, and most of that will be, again, after 4 o'clock. Again, here's the updated tropical picture, that stuff in the northern Gulf. Hurricane Center is saying 20% chance of development. Again, it's not really a big deal either way. It's a rainmaker regardless. But then you have the area in orange, still at 40%, but indications are, I suspect, that number will start going up as we reach 7 days from Saturday or Sunday, tomorrow and into the next day. But at this point, it's a blob. And the good news is it doesn't look like it's really going to get its act together in time to really bother the islands too much. From the Leeward Islands, over to the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the Dominican, Haiti, I think they're all going to be fine with this, unless it unexpectedly gets its act together. And I don't really see that happening right now. And then, obviously, what we've been talking about late next weekend and into the early of the following week. I mean, I don't think the odds are any high. At this point, based on the models, anywhere in the Gulf of Mexico is a possibility. Anywhere. There's no higher odds in Florida than Louisiana or Texas. I mean, maybe the Yucatan and the western side is a little bit lower with that front coming in. The chances maybe from Louisiana east could probably be a little bit higher. I would say that's probably an accurate statement. But this far out, it could be anywhere. We all know that it could be anywhere, right? All right, so for the boaters tomorrow, if you think about taking the boat out, scalloping season has been extended for Pasco County. So a lot of folks might be out on the water doing some scalloping. Be really, really careful. There's so many people out on the water over Labor Day weekend. And if you are going to do some scalloping, remember to have your dive flag out there and very visible, because there's a lot of people riding around. And a lot of times Labor Day and the 4th of July and Memorial Day bring out some rather inexperienced boaters. So be really careful with that. East winds 10 to 15 knots. You'll have no weather situations to deal with until about 4 or 5 o'clock. But remember, these storms pop up really quickly. So if you're going to get to port, or you're going to dock your boat, you might want to give yourself some time, because there's going to be more people out there. There's going to be more people out there out on the water. So there's going to, if you're going to use a boat ramp, there's probably going to be a line getting in. And especially if there's storms coming in, there's going to be a big line of people coming in. So kind of remember that as you get through. If you're just tuning in, this will repeat. So I'm going to end this at 8 o'clock, but this will repeat, and you'll get my thoughts on what's popping with the tropics. I do think we're going to be talking about this one for a while. It does not mean it's a Florida system, but odds are better than 50-50 that it's going to be a Gulf system, I think it's fair to say. There's your beach forecast tomorrow. Again, beautiful in the morning, beautiful in the afternoon, but once we hit about 4 or 5 o'clock, those storms are going to start coming in, and they'll do so quickly with a lot of lightning. But I'll tell you, tomorrow the coverage will be lower than it was today and lower than it's going to be on Sunday and Monday. So I do think we're looking a little bit better tomorrow versus Sunday into Monday. Either way, it's going to be nice in the morning into the early afternoon. And you notice on the 7-day, the rain chances were going 40% on Saturday. We're going back up to 50% on Sunday, and on Labor Day, we're actually going up to 60% with high temperatures reaching the lower 90s. All right? So there you have it. I am off this week. I'm working next weekend. Jason's off unless there's a hurricane somewhere nearby, and then I have a feeling it'll be all hands on deck. We'll see how it plays out. But I'll be updating. I'm going to be back to doing my videos again. I think the videos can be easier if I keep them relatively short rather than reading my lengthy posts. But we try to keep them 1.5 to 2 minutes tops, just to give you a quick overview. But again, enjoy your holiday weekend. You got nothing to worry about this weekend. Nothing is going to change this weekend. You'll probably see the models flip-flopping back and forth, because that's what they do. But at the end of the day, if the models are right and the thinking is right, this is going to stay disorganized until we get to the end of next week. And then as it gets to the Western Caribbean, at that point, there's the potential for development. And if it makes it into the Gulf, there's potential for rapid development, as warm as that water is. So you guys have a great night. Thanks for watching. Have a great holiday weekend, and we will see you on our next edition of Dennis Phillips Live. See you guys.